Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have some stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. First, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who reached out in the comments and were wishing me well on my recovery from the abscess and the infection and all that stuff. I'm doing pretty well. I'm still on my antibiotics and we're still taking care of this thing that seems to be getting a little bit better, but it's taken some time. It just looks nasty. But anyway, I thank each and every one of you who left a comment. It is really nice to know that there's so many people out there that care. Thank you. I love you all. All right, let's get into today's stories. It's time to jump right in. This story comes to us from Aeon Finance. Report everything that happens on these files or else? Okay then, I will. Okay, I will get this right this time. 10 years ago, I worked under a manager who could best be described as an old school battle axe. It was an HR office. I do not work in HR anymore, and this is probably why. I was an intern starting a white collar HR corporate job after 10 years of blue collar work. I was excited to be in a climate controlled office. I dreamed for years for this and put myself through university by my bootstrap. I would do anything for air-controlled office. I just broke my back a year prior and had a difficult time finishing my final year. She was known across the office for being impossible to please and for running through staff faster than the copier toner. Nobody lasted more than a year, I was told. From my first day, I was on her radar. I make occasional typing mistakes because of medication I was on that affect short-term memory. I always ran spell check and proofed my work carefully, but she treated every minor error like a personal failure. She would scold me for the smallest things. Once, she gave me an hour-long lecture about professionalism because I wore a blue shirt instead of a white one. I wore a sweater to a client meeting because their thermostat was broken and it was minus 20 degrees Celsius outside. I got shouted at by my supervisor for wearing the sweater harder than I did on any worksite. Every day felt like inhaling glass shards. Then came the instruction that broke the camel's back. She told me I needed to deliver a daily oral report on every client file I managed. These weren't short updates. She expected me to know every number, every email, every call from memory, word for word what was said. If I even got one word out of the transcript off, I was not fit to be there. She said, "From the moment the sun rises on this office to the moment it sets, you are to report everything that happens in these reports." She knew I had a memory-related disability from a past concussion. She knew it would overwhelm me. So I decided to take her words literally. That night, I opened Excel and began logging everything, every keystroke. I wrote it all down. I even practiced my delivery so I could recite it perfectly. The next morning, when she called me into her office, I walked from my car to the building, opened the office door with my right hand, moderate pressure, entered the building, greeted the receptionist, made a coffee in the Keurig for 25 seconds, sat at my desk, adjusted my chair, started computer, opened Excel, began typing reports, ensuring keyboard sound remained within acceptable volume to avoid disturbing senior management, arriving 45 minutes after 9 a.m. I continued like that for almost the entire hour, uninterrupted. She tried to interrupt, but I reminded her gently that I was reporting everything that happens. When it was over, she just stared at me. A week later, HR called me in. Yes, HR does have its own HR. I explained the situation exactly as it happened, that I was following her directive word for word. I had detailed documentation. By this time, I wrote down everything that happened in that office. They agreed it wasn't sustainable. Within a month, I was transferred to a new department. I was laid off 3 months later because that boss quit, but I got a good reference. Jumping down to the comments on this one, there's one from a user called Cramerica. It says, "It always baffles me that companies would rather keep the problematic employee instead of taking a step back and wondering if insane turnover for a specific position, working with a specific person, was maybe detrimental to the company. OP responded and said, "Yeah, I have wondered that my whole career." Was anybody else thinking that OP took things a little bit too far in this story? Because the boss said they needed to deliver a daily oral report on every client file they managed. They didn't tell OP that they needed to write down every single little thing they did in the office from the time they got there to the time that they left. It was literally on every client file I managed. Yeah. I think the company might have felt the same way because they transferred OP to a different department and then laid them off within 3 months. This story comes to us from Ambitious Exam 3858. All items on floor are trash. Have fun rooting through the dumpster. I'm a custodian for an office building. I clean bathrooms, take out trash, vacuum, etc. I clean in the morning before the office opens. When collecting trash, I'd occasionally find some loose papers under or behind desks, beside the trash can, or otherwise on the floor. Since I'm not sure if these papers are trash that missed the can or important documents that fell on the floor by accident, I pick them up and put them on the corner of the nearest desk for the workers to either file them away or toss them. Better safe than sorry. However, the manager did not like this habit. She came in early one morning expressing disgust that trash is being placed on people's desks. Obviously, I never actually put trash like food wrappers or crumpled papers on their desks. I explained my reasoning for my habit and expressed that I didn't want to risk tossing something important. My manager told me that everything on the floor is trash, and the workers aren't such immature slobs to drop important documents on the floor. I agree and said I'll never do it again. Flash forward several weeks, my manager came in early again and expressed concerns because a filing cabinet had tipped over during the day, and despite picking up the papers, they were still missing a few important documents. She asked if I'd seen them. I reminded her that since everything on the floor is trash, the documents were probably thrown away. She was irate, saying, "But this was an exception, since a filing cabinet fell over." I asked her how I was supposed to know that when I'm not there during the day and was otherwise not informed to look out for those documents. That's when the situation dawned in this woman's eyes that she was at fault. She stumbled through some excuses before demanding I go to the dumpster and find the papers. I told her that the office was opening in 15 minutes and I still had work to do. She stormed off and said she'd start looking in the dumpster. While I cleaned, I knew I'd face her again before leaving. My car is parked by the dumpster, so I thought of what to say to her as the final nail in the coffin. Sure enough, when I finished my work and walked out, the manager and a few other workers who'd arrived were rooting through the dumpster. When the manager spotted me, she demanded I come help. I delivered my prepared line. "Ma'am, my job description is to take out trash. Your job description is to ensure the safety and confidentiality of your client's files." I walked away to, in my head, a cartoon-esque villain scream of outraged failure from my manager. A few hours later, I got a text saying there will now be a special inbox shelf for me to place any papers found on the floor for the workers to go through. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Cajun Maverick. It says, "I learned early on to treat janitorial staff with more respect than the owners or CEO. Yes, more respect." OP responded and said, "You suddenly learn who to respect when the toilet paper is 2-ply, the coffee filters and cups aren't restocked, and the kitchen fridge is cleared out. I haven't done any of this since it's a little cruel, in my opinion, but custodians have more power over your workplace than many realize." Another commenter down below called Stepped In Hairball said, "I never understood why people disrespect custodians. Want to see a business enter a crisis quickly? Have no one to empty the trash can, clean the bathrooms, resupply the bathrooms, etc. Things would get real super fast. It's not a pleasant job, and they have my respect." Okay, I have definitely been watching too much Australian YouTube recently because when they say that they are rooting in the dumpster, well, that just doesn't mean the same thing down there that it might mean up here, if you know what I mean. Let's be real here, people. We want the building admin, the security, and the custodial staff to always be in our corner, so we treat them with all of the respect that they deserve. Most of the time, all that means is saying hi and acknowledging that they exist. This story comes to us from Alien Anima Released. IT wanted process over results. I gave them process and panic. A couple of years ago, I got shuffled out of the business side and into IT during a reorganization. The official reason was better alignment with software delivery. The real reason? I'm expensive, I don't do sales, and IT has a bigger budget. Also, and this is educated speculation, I kept not approving IT's builds for not meeting specs, which apparently makes me difficult and not solution-oriented. So now I report to the executive I had previously challenged over the quality of his team's work. Since joining IT, everything has to be a ticket. Doesn't matter if it's a question, a clarification, or divine revelation, no ticket, no work. PMs handle ticket creation and prioritization, which sounds fine in theory, except my actual job is to consult with business analysts and developers. I know more about the rules, regulations, and use cases of our software than anyone in the company, and my work doesn't easily fall into a ticket as it's more of a problem-solving role for existing tickets. Still, no ticket equals no work. Bureaucracy over brains. Clients, especially senior ones, tend to reach out to me directly because I can actually answer their questions. Normally, I just respond, and if needed, make a ticket afterward for tracking. But management didn't like that. After one particularly spirited discussion over delays to close low-priority tickets in lieu of responding to high-priority client emails, my boss told me to stop responding to client emails altogether. I was to forward them to PMs, who would create, prioritize, and assign tickets. I explained patiently that these emails often come from executives and need quick turnaround. Boss's response? Follow the process, or we won't know how overworked you are. Okay then, boss, let's follow the process. A week later, I get an email from the CFO of one of our biggest clients asking for details about a customized build. Normally, I'd get an estimate out in a couple of hours. Instead, I CC'd my boss and PM, confirmed that I'd received the request, and politely asked them to create and assign a ticket. A few days later, the CFO followed up, "We need this by Friday." I replied again, CCing everyone, apologizing for the delay, and asking that the assigned resource take note of the urgency, knowing full well no one had assigned the ticket. Behind the scenes, I had already done the estimate and informed the client what was happening. Spoiler, nothing. Suddenly, my boss is frantically pinging me. "Why haven't you gotten back to the CFO?" I calmly reminded him that 1. He told me to only work on assigned tickets. 2. He was CC'd on every email. 3. He'd have to ask the PM for a status update. There was a long, delicious silence before he finally replied. "Okay, you don't need a ticket for everything. In the future, if it's from an executive, just respond and make a ticket afterward." Sure thing, boss. Glad we cleared that up. I sent the estimate, everyone was happy, and peace was restored. And better yet, management now puts results over process. Well, the first part anyway, but peace and results, well, that's a malicious compliance story for another day. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Stunks. It says, "For the record, IT people need tickets because that's how they are judged on their work. Their bonus and pay raise is likely tied to ticket volume, and having a low ticket count might stand in the way of hiring more staff. There's no reason to stop you from creating a ticket after responding though." I completely agree with the commenter on this one. If a ticket system is needed, then there's ways that it can be used that won't slow down the overall process. Yes, fix the issue if you can do it right away, then put the ticket in afterwards and immediately mark it as resolved. Easy peasy, it's done. This story comes to us from Business Wolf 5599. "Making them cold just seemed like the right thing to do. I used to work in a retirement village with a communal restaurant and dining room. There was this awful family who, despite being only a 15-minute drive away from the village, would almost never visit their mother. We can call the mother Sam. Sam was kind. Sam's family were constantly neglecting to provide items such as clothing, and most of Sam's valuables had, in my opinion, been stolen by them. As they were the power of attorney for financial, personal, and health matters, nothing legally could be done, apparently. Fast forward to a hot Australian Christmas day, the village is hosting a Christmas lunch for the old people who didn't manage to go out for the day. Families were welcome, but you had to book ahead. The invitation clearly said to bring a jumper, as the AC was very cold to cater to the constant opening of the dining room doors with guests coming and going. Naturally, Sam's family failed to book a seat and had to be accommodated last minute. Naturally, they were the only ones without a jumper. I got the privilege of finding them a place to sit, so I dressed Sam in an extra warm, nice outfit and set up their table under the big main AC vent. 10 minutes later, Sam's annoyed son and daughter-in-law approached me and asked, "Can you please turn down the air conditioning? It's too cold." "Yep, no problem, I can do that," I said, and I did. I turned that AC down an extra 4 degrees, I think to 16 degrees Celsius if memory serves. Sam's family left earlier than any other family, and Sam was able to spend the rest of Christmas with people who spoke to her like she was a human being. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Gaping Hole. It says, "F Sam's family. I hope she's at peace now, wherever she is, and whatever she's doing." OP responded and said, "She is. It's been about 15 years, and I still think of her." Another commenter down below called OIC Nikki 812 said, "I hear stories like this about families being awful to their elderly parents. I can't help but think, though, what the old people must have been like in their prime. Were they awful to their kids? Is this behavior just karma coming back to bite them? I think about my own mother, disowned her whole family because she never wanted to be a mother, and she hated my grandparents. My brother reached out after about 10 years no contact with our mom. She blew up, saying she was happy without us in her life. And then, when he respectfully said, okay, and he'll respect her decision, she went off again about how we must not love her, and blah blah blah. My mom will 100% be that person in a nursing home with no one visiting and crying about why her family never comes to visit. And some caretaker sucker is bound to believe her and blame the family for being buttholes. Because she's nice and charismatic when she wants to be." OP was a caregiver that was around Sam for over 3 years from what they said, and they said that Sam was a nice person. These caregivers probably know a lot more about the people they're caring for than you might think. If they say that they're a nice person, I'm probably going to go with the fact that they're a nice person, because if they were somebody who treated their family like crap many years ago, there would still be signs of that now. It is nice to hear that Sam's caregivers actually cared about Sam. One of my grandmothers was in a nursing home, and a few times when we went in to check on her, they had her in a wheelchair, in a corner, facing the wall, doing nothing. That was not great. This story comes to us from Lampshade Tricky. "My dog has a very specific rule. No chew toys on the bed. He disagrees." I'd post a photo for maximum cuteness, but alas, Reddit won't let me. My youngest pup has a bit of a spatial awareness issue. He'll be happily chewing a toy, completely oblivious to the fact that he's also gnawing on a throw blanket, a pillow, or once my hoodie. Rest in peace to several cozy items. Because of this, we've instituted a simple rule: no chew toys on the bed. The bed is for sleeping, snuggling, and pretending we're responsible adults with clean linens. So now, whenever he hops up with a toy, I calmly take it from him, drop it on the floor, and say, "Nope, toys are for the floor." Sometimes he stays in bed, sometimes he hops down and chews it there like a good boy. But sometimes, and this is where the malicious compliance kicks in, he brings the toy back up, lies on the bed, and just dangles it over the edge like he's found a loophole in the system. Technically, he's not chewing it on the bed. Technically, he's following the rules. I think I'm being outsmarted by a dog. I remember when I was a kid, we would visit one of my parents' friends' houses, and they had a golden retriever that knew it wasn't allowed in the dining room because that's where the wooden floors were. So it would lie down with its body completely in the kitchen, with just its front paws sitting inside the door into the dining room, and it would stare at everybody while they were eating. It was just so adorable, but obviously very well trained and knew that they weren't allowed in the room. Alright, on that note, I think we'll end this one here. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us on your preferred podcasting platform. If you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.